What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking the premiere edition of Uncool with Alexa Bliss, the first episode featuring none other than Mike the Miz Mizanin. Great episode. So I wasn't planning, and I may still not, I'm not really sure yet. I wasn't initially planning on reviewing the show, because technically it's a podcast. I think new episodes are released every Tuesday. I really have no interest in listening to it as a podcast. I might. There's a lot of shows a lot of podcasts that put out the audio version earlier than the video version. I always prefer the video version. If there's video, I will watch it over the audio version. That's just my preference. It's not like they showed pictures for the most part during this Miz episode. They might for future shows. They didn't during this one, except for like one picture of like Alexa Bliss hosting WrestleMania and The Miz doing the Diva Search thing from years and years ago. That was it. Other than that, this was purely, I still prefer to watch their interaction than just listen to it. But it was great. I really, really enjoyed this show. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect from it. Calling a show Uncool, I get the premise of the show. The title to me just feels lazy. And when I heard it announced, I'm like, okay, Alexa Bliss is great. How good is the concept actually going to be, or the execution of it? Because there's not a lot of wrestlers on the show itself. The Miz was obviously episode 1 to get all the wrestling fans hooked, but I think from here on, though, it's going to be a lot of like artists and other people that Alexa Bliss knows or is a fan of or whatever. So it's not going to be a wrestling show. It's not all wrestling guests, but I'm still probably going to watch it because I thought this first episode was great. And not just because I'm a fan of The Miz, I just thought the general basis of the show, where it was only 34 to 35 minutes, they had great chemistry, and Alexa Bliss is a great host. So this is what we can expect from future episodes. I probably will continue to review them, definitely watch them if the video version is available. I think it was on the WWE Network. I watched this one on the WWE YouTube channel, so if that's where they continue to put it, that's where I'm going to watch it. But even if it's on the network, I'll still probably review it, just because I think the video version is cool. If it's just audio, then probably not. Again, that's my preference. If it's not on the network, I won't review it. That's the whole point of Network and Chill, for the most part. I will review some stuff that's not on the WWE Network, like Dark Side of the Ring and stuff like that. For the most part, though, if it's on the network, I'm probably going to review it, including this show, which I thought was great. So again, the show is basically what the title suggests, that it's all about the uncool stories, high school embarrassing stories, college, embarrassing college stories, stuff like that. So, and both Alexa Bliss and The Miz are great. And I thought they shared a lot of funny stories where I was hooked the whole time. I was expecting to, take notes on what was happening and what they were saying, but just go off and do something else. I got hooked to the point where I watched the entire thing, watching it from start to finish. I took notes and whatnot to review here for the show. But I was hooked the entire time. I was laughing. I was loving this thing. I thought it was great. So Alexa Bliss, I guess maybe it's the first question that she asks on every episode. I don't know. This is only episode 1. But she goes, what point in your life did you feel the most uncool? And the obvious answer would be high school, but Miz, being the guy that he is, says that he thought he was cool in high school. He probably still thinks that now. His friends would say that he was the most uncool in high school, but they're your friends. They're there kind of just to bust your balls. That's kind of their purpose, he said. He never really says at what point he felt the most uncool, but there were a lot of uncool, embarrassing moments that he did endure during his high school career. So he told this quick story about how he was pretty mad that he wasn't in the yearbook a lot during junior year. So the yearbook comes out, he's barely in any pictures. He was pretty mad about that, so he addressed it with the yearbook committee themselves, and they said, hey, do you want to be a part of the yearbook and correct this yourself or whatever? Do you want to be the senior editor? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So his friends see it, and he's in every, fucking picture. He's all over the place, and people would address it to him, and he's like, listen, I'm the senior editor. I know what I'm doing. So they were dumb to give him that role to begin with. But he basically made it, in his own words, a scrapbook of Mike the Miz Mizanin. It was him in, every single picture, which is great. So he also ran in high school for student government body president. He called it student government president. I think it's technically student body president, but whatever. His dad, he told good old George, he told his dad his speech. His dad didn't think anyone would vote for him because he thought the whole speech was like, oh yeah, we're going to do it for the school. Yeah, like the whole rah-rah shit. He's got to address some real issues here. So he told him what to talk about. And one of his really good friends named Ogre, weird name, and Miz addresses that, was running too. So they both do their speeches. Miz got a standing ovation, and his victory was so impressive because that guy Ogre, everyone loved. Even to this day, he's a really beloved, nice, genuine, cool human being. But Miz just had a better speech. He got a standing ovation and got all but 2 votes, he said. And the 2 votes were from Ogre's best friends, which is great. And he said, yeah, he was a nerd in high school, but being a nerd now is cool, which I totally agree with. I think a lot of people would. If someone calls you a nerd, it doesn't exactly have that same negative stigma that I would argue that it did 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago or whatever. Alexa Bliss was a nerd, she admits, because she was not only on the cheerleading team, which isn't really a nerdy thing, but she was in the drama club. And she was in a play called The Man Who Came to Dinner. She did have to quit pole vaulting, though. That was her parents' idea. Her parents really wanted her to be involved in all the athletic stuff. But she quit that to do drama. The Miz, that was his only one high school regret, he says, was to do drama. He's kind of doing it now in WWE, but he wanted to do it back then as well. So Bliss actually admits that she wanted to, growing up, play violin. And when her parents pushed her towards athletics, I think she did both. And she broke her arm doing something in athletics, whether it be gymnastics or cheerleading, I forgot which. But she broke her arm and she couldn't do the violin anymore, and she was really upset about that. Her mom loved the fact that she couldn't do it anymore because her mom fucking hated hearing the violin in their house. It was a really screechy instrument. She wasn't all that good at it. She wasn't really all that good at it, and the mom hated the noise. The Miz had a music class in high school. They kind of encouraged the kids to play music. In my high school, it was the same thing. I feel like a lot of high schools now and back then, and back then especially as well, encourage kids to take music. I played the saxophone for, God, I don't know, 6th grade in middle school through, not even, I think actually in 4th or 5th grade I started, up until senior year in high school. When I figured out I didn't have to do it anymore in college, I didn't do it. But, after senior year, and it looks good for extracurriculars and stuff like that. But I did it for a while, and I guess Miz started his music career to a certain extent in high school. And I don't know why, but you only had 2 options for your instrument. I guess I don't know if there were trumpets and, the drums and percussion and whatever, saxophone. He said there were only 2 options. There was the violin and the viola. What the hell is the difference? I have no idea. I know what a violin is. I've never heard of viola. I don't know if that's the clarinet. I have no clue. But the girl that he liked in high school also played the violin. And he admits, he's the first one to admit, he's not musically inclined. He's tried the drums, he's tried guitar. That was a whole thing on the New Day podcast a couple of weeks ago, that he desperately tried to play guitar and he was just no good. And he also could not play the violin. So what he had to do, and he also didn't want to ruin this girl's concert because she was great, but he really, really liked her. So instead of quitting or calling in sick or not showing up or whatever, he pretended to play during the concert. I feel like we were all there at one point or another where we pretend, if you played an instrument and you weren't that good, you probably pretended to play at one point or another. The issue is that when he did it, he and this other girl were the only 2 people playing the violin. So you could only hear one violin. So everyone was aware of the fact that the Miz was not playing the fucking violin. He was just faking. It was pretty obvious that he wasn't playing of the 2. And it was actually Ode to Joy. That was what they had to play. He tried the flute after that, couldn't do it, but he got to play with all girls, so he did like that aspect of it. That's a typical guy thing to say. But he could never get a note out. He was like the laughing stock of the band class because he could never get a note out because he was so bad. And the flute is tough. I've never played it myself, but from what I understand, it's a pretty tough instrument to play. And Alexa asks him, were you like the class clown that always liked to try to get a laugh out of people? He said no, but he did talk a lot. And so did Alexa Bliss as a kid. She said that in her, younger, I don't know if we're talking high school, I'm assuming elementary school. Definitely not high school. Why would you do this in high school? They had the desks set up in a circle, and she would always be in the middle because she talked so much. And the teacher would always have to tell her to be quiet, which is great. Miz was the one who always got put next to the teacher. He had more of a standard setup as I did, where it would be rows or pairs of kids. He would always be by himself next to the teacher because he would always talk so much during class. They talk about their handwriting and how math is tough now. The new math is difficult and how they're not really doing cursive writing anymore in school. But they do bring up how Alexa Bliss's handwriting was terrible as a kid. In fact, as a kid at the school that she went to, she was encouraged as a left-handed writer or whatever, as being left-handed, as a lefty, she was told to be right-handed. She was told that being left-handed was the wrong thing to do, which sounds unbelievably stupid, that any teacher would actually enforce that. But I guess that was the case at her school, which is ridiculous. Thankfully, when the mom got wind of this, she got really, really pissed off with the teacher, which was also great. So it's a great mom thing to do. But nonetheless, so after that, Miz gets asked about his most embarrassing moment. One of the first moments to come to mind is when, and he's told this story a million times before, during the Diva Search on Raw, many, many, many years ago, like 04, 05 maybe. It was after his Tough Enough days, and he was the host of the Diva Search. And that's where he actually met Maurice, I'm pretty sure. I forget. But he was told to give the people the number to call to vote for who they wanted to win that round. And the number on his hand either, I think, was not there or it was smudged. I'm pretty sure it was smudged. So he didn't know the number. So he was out there trying to read the number, and it was like a 4-digit thing, and he messed it up, and he was really, really nervous, got that cold sweat. And Alexa Bliss kind of had something similar where when she went out for WrestleMania 35 and she was the host of that show, she thought she was going to forget the attendance number because it was such a big number. Thankfully, she didn't, and you would never know that she was ever nervous about it. But Miz did mess up, and he told Vince afterward, "I'm sorry, sir, that'll never happen again." And Vince was actually nice about it. He wasn't like, "Oh, you're fired." He was like, "I know it won't happen again because you're going to work on it." And Miz was like, "You're right, I will." And he did, and he never really had that happen to him again. And, he's obviously probably, not messed up or forgotten his lines since then, but he could always go off the cuff or remember them, and he never let that type of thing happen to him again, which is cool. But the other embarrassing story that he shares that was worse than that was when in his college he met this pretty girl in his math class. Just so happened that she lived right by him. She actually lived in... I don't know where exactly, but she lived, I believe, in Ohio with The Miz, and not actually too far away from where he lived. So they were talking, I guess, not sure to what extent at college, but he went over her house. The day after Thanksgiving, they all went home for Thanksgiving on college Thanksgiving break. The day after, which would have been Black Friday, I guess, she asked him I guess he called her and asked her if she wanted to hang out. She said, "Yeah, come over and hang out at my house. My parents are away." And Miz is like, "Oh, cha-ching, this is awesome." Drives over there in his old school car. Listen to Blink 182, which is great. Really funny stuff. So he gets there. They're having a good time. Things are going great. And then his stomach starts making noises. And he's like, "What's going on here?" So he's like, "Can I use your bathroom?" She says, yes. He goes to the bathroom. He's sitting on the toilet pooping. Doesn't outright say it, but he's currently pooping. And then he feels like he has to throw up. He can't get off the toilet because he's pooping. And there's not just the fact that there's crap in the toilet, but probably because he's in the process of getting it out, so he can't turn away to throw up in the toilet. So he's looking for a trash can around the bathroom. He can't find one. He has his mouth closed. He has his hand over his mouth, but he can't hold it in. He just projectiles everywhere. Like, not just a little, but a lot. A lot. Which is disgusting. And it was all over the wall. It was on the floor. He tried to pick it up with his hands, which is even grosser. He tried to clean it up, but there were no cleaning supplies in the bathroom. And there really wasn't anything that he could do. So he felt that was the most embarrassed he had ever felt in his entire life. It was completely disgusting. So he tried to wipe it up with the toilet paper, but obviously that's not going to work because it's way too thin, So that's obviously not going to work. So he talked to himself in the mirror, contemplating, should I tell her? I got to tell her. So he asked her, "Hey, do you have any cleaning supplies? I had an accident." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever." And they go over to it, and he's like, "You probably shouldn't go in there." And she's like, "No, it's okay." And she walks in, and she's like, "Whoa." You can only imagine. I think when I heard him say that, I'm thinking Eddie Murphy's reaction in Daddy Daycare when he walks into the bathroom, and they don't show anything, but he looks up at the ceiling, and they kind of imply that there's shit on the ceiling and whatever. And then you hear, that great music. Da-da-dun, da-da-dun, the whole, not scream. What's that? What's the, God, not The Shining. Oh, fuck. What's that movie? Not Scream. It's the classic, it's the shower scene. Oh, man, it's going to bother me now. I don't remember. I watched it before. I forgot just off the top of my head. I don't remember here. But anyway, there was the music in the scene from Daddy Daycare. That has nothing to do with anything aside from this. But yeah, just great. And I was expecting her to say, like, oh, this is so gross, they never talked ever again. But it actually had a happy ending. He was like, oh yeah, she took care of me. I couldn't go home. I puked another 9 times. He took off his clothes right there in front of her. He barely knew her, but it's not like they had sex or anything. But, she gave him new clothes. She cleaned everything up. She took care of him despite puking 9 times. And they actually dated for a year after that. So I thought that was really cool. It actually had a happy ending. And then Alexa Bliss told a story, not that embarrassing, but about how she liked her neighbor named Corey, and how she did everything that he did. She listened to the same music, like Eversance or whatever it's called. I know the band, but I don't know how you pronounce it, unfortunately. She traded Pokemon cards. She collected Pokemon cards to be exactly like her neighbor Corey. But she didn't say that she confronted him, or maybe she found out from someone else. He did not like her at all because she was such a tomboy. So that never really worked out. So she was really embarrassed about that. Not exactly the most super embarrassing moment, but it's pretty embarrassing. So then they talk about New Kids on the Block, and Miz was a huge New Kids on the Block fan. Alexa Bliss knows barely anything about him, and how he went to one of their concerts when they were in town he was filming like Santa's Little Helper with Paige. And the whole cast got tickets to the concert because Miz knew someone who knew them, I guess. So they went to the concert. He knew every line to every song, and Paige sat there so confused because I guess she had never heard of them before. And Miz is 39 currently, so he's way older than Paige. So that really isn't much. If Alexa Bliss, who I believe is older than Paige, doesn't know, yeah, she is older than Paige. If she doesn't know who the group is, odds are that Paige probably isn't going to know who they are either. So she was so confused. She said that she actually liked NSYNC, Avril Lavigne, and Bowling for Soup, who actually did a song on her a couple of years ago called, I think actually called Alexa Bliss, where it was like, oh, we have a crush on Alexa Bliss, blah, blah, blah. Every kid does. Whatever, but those are her favorite bands, and those were her favorite bands growing up. She closes out the episode by asking Miz, what would you tell your younger self if you had the chance? And he would say, everything is going to be okay. Just keep doing what you're doing. Despite any mishaps you have along the way, just know that everything kind of happens for a reason type of thing. And you always got to be the best version of yourself possible. Now he's still constantly working on himself, just now as a father. He's trying to be the best dad that he can be. And that having 1 kid was tough, let alone 2. 2 is an entirely different thing. He told me the same thing when I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, but he reiterated that here. And he also asked Alexa if she wanted kids. She said that she would want, 2 or 3. He doesn't say if he wants more. I would assume that he wants another kid just to have that boy that he was looking for. If you watch Ms. and Mrs., you could desperately tell. You could definitely tell that the guy desperately wants a boy. So they'll probably have a 3rd kid at some point, but they just got done with their 2nd like a year ago, so it might not be anytime soon. I guess we'll see. Although Bray Wyatt and JoJo actually had 2 kids in the span of a year. Like right after they had their 1st kid, they had a 2nd kid. Like literally less than a year later, I think, which is crazy. But anyway, this was a great episode. You can check out the video version right now on the WWE YouTube channel. It's on the WWE Network, I believe, as well. The audio version is in podcast form. I prefer the video stuff, but you can check out the podcast too. And they have a lot of other upcoming guests on the show, some of which I'm not aware of, I'm not familiar with. But I'm going to be watching it anyway. I really, really like this one, and I started the show, so I might as well finish it. Even if I'm not overly familiar with the guests and they're not wrestling related, who cares? I'll check it out anyway, because this was great. And I trust Alexa Bliss enough with the concept that she'll do right by it, and regardless of the guest, make it entertaining no matter what. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll create a playlist of all my Uncool with Alexa Bliss reviews. There's only going to be 1 video on there as of right now. That should be down below in the description box. And that's about it, guys. So have a great one. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel whenever, for the daily content. Hit that little bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. And I think new episodes of this show are going up every Tuesday. I'm about a week late putting up this review. Just because there's so much network content going up right now. But so keep an eye out for that. And the next one should be up relatively soon, so probably next week. But I think new episodes go up every week if you're interested. At any rate, like I said, guys, have a great one. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.